If you haven't heard about Anchor by Spotify, it's the easiest way to make a podcast with everything that you need all in one place. Let me explain. Anchor has tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. When hosting on Anchor, you can distribute your podcast on any listening platform like Spotify, Apple Podcast, and many, many more. It's everything that you need to make a podcast all in one place. And best of all, Anchor is totally free. Download the Anchor app today or go to anchor.fm to get started. Welcome to the Wartime Leadership Podcast, where we explore what spiritual resiliency looks like from different perspectives. We often focus on the physical, emotional, and social areas of resiliency, but often neglect the spiritual pillar. This looks different to everyone. We will be exploring what spiritual resiliency looks like in the lives of our guests, who are people from all different walks of life. Tonight's episode is sponsored by Success Draft, where we help you transform your dreams into drafted plans. Head over to successdraft.com to get started today. And speaking of Success Draft, tonight's guest is someone very special to me because she was one of my students at Success Draft when we were walking through leadership perspectives. And I am so blessed tonight to have New York Police Department Detective Sophia White. Welcome, Sophia.
Hi. Hello. How you doing, Nathan?
I am doing wonderful. It is wonderful to see your beautiful face. I know the rest of the world can't see because we're not using video, but we are so blessed tonight, folks. Sophia is an amazing individual with an amazing backstory. She's actually the wife of an upcoming guest that we have in a few episodes from now, DJ Kev White. They are newly married. They haven't been married for that long, so they're going through that journey together. As she smiles and laughs, yeah, she knows.
Yes. yes. So we just got married actually in the middle of the pandemic. So we got married December 12th, 2020. And it was actually very quick. When I say very quick, when Kevin met me, and really he found me on Facebook, I would say he was very persistent. And I had my heart closed towards anyone. I was just waiting on that guy, just waiting for my husband. And I was really trying to be serious in my walk with Christ. And when I say he came for me, he came for me. And it was actually spoken to me, like just through prayer. Someone would say, "Hey, your husband is coming soon," and I'm like, "Okay, yeah. No, your husband's coming soon, and it's not going to be what you think." And I'm like, "Okay." And the next thing you know, I'll be woken up in the middle of the night. I don't know if anybody knows about this, but sometimes God gives you visions, or He speaks to you, or He gives you dreams, And He told me one day, and I remember the date. It was April 21st, 2020. And he said, "Sophia, your husband is about to come for you. He's about to come and get you. So I need you to prepare your heart to be a wife." And I was like, okay. And he's like, "No, he's coming next season." So to me, in my mind, I'm like, next season is like 2 years from now. I'm like, all right, next season, no problem. And he's like, "No, Sophia, open your heart to receive. Prepare yourself to be a wife." And next thing you know, June 5th, 2020, Kevin hit me up via Facebook, and he spoke to me about a man named John Ramirez, and he spoke about spiritual warfare. And most people don't know about spiritual warfare. And I say, "Well, what you know about that?" And he was like, "I think you should take his classes. He's awesome, blah, blah, blah." That's the only reason why I hit him back, because he spoke about John Ramirez. And I was just starting to go through spiritual warfare. I just came out of it, and I'm like trying to find my bearings. And when he spoke about him, that's what caught my attention, and that's why I even responded back to him. Because most of the time I don't respond back to men in my inbox.
Wow.
So yeah. And then June
Wow.
25th is when we got together, and then we got engaged October 8th, December 12th, we got married 6 months later.
I was about to say, because you and I are Facebook friends, right? And
Yes.
I it was very, very quick, that transition, because I actually remember like, wait, was she dating somebody? Like I didn't what? When did when did
Yes.
this happen? Isn't it amazing though that God's sense of humor, you said, I was very serious and very, I was looking for a serious man, and God sent you Kevin.
Yes. Totally
Like the
opposite.
complete opposite of that. Like
Complete
just
opposite. If I can
laughing,
describe
bubbly.
if I could describe his personality, I would say, even in ministry, I would say between Mickey Mouse and Deadpool.
Ah! And it's funny because, and as you all will find out in a later episode, he was a Disney Cruise Line DJ. So it makes it even better that she's calling him Mickey Mouse mixed with a little Deadpool.
Yes.
All
Absolutely.
right. Well, speaking of all that, how about if we jump into our 5 easy questions, Sophia? These aren't bad at all right.
Let's go.
What is one thing that you find repulsive?
Ooh, okay. Oh, right now I'm pregnant. So I find a lot of things repulsive, but before that, I would say, to be honest with you, don't bad breath.
Mm, mm.
Bad breath, and I can't take it. I have a sensitive nose, and when someone is talking to me and they have bad breath, I'm like, it's almost like I get knocked off my chair.
Well, I can't wait till the listeners can hear what Kev's is, because it kind of complements that one right away. So this is good. So you find repulsive, you find bad breath repulsive. Okay. So what is in your online shopping cart that you have not purchased yet?
You know what? I actually just purchased everything the other day, but I had it in my shopping cart for a while. So it was like, I have 2 kids, so it's like kid stuff like socks, things like that for my son. I said, you know what? Let me just put it through Amazon. I just put it through and it came already. So it's good. My shopping cart is clear.
You know what? I actually just caught something that you said, and I didn't. You're pregnant?
Yes.
Wait. See, these are people.
Yes.
Let me tell you, we are friends. Like we have talked a lot, and I am just now finding out that she's pregnant today. This is crazy. Congratulations.
Thank you. Well, today was my 3-month mark, so I'm safe to speak about it.
Oh, that's beautiful. Well, congratulations to you and Kev. That is awesome.
Thank you.
That is definitely heaven sent, to say the least.
Yes.
All right. Well, wow. Okay. Trying to get back on track here. What do you love about your job?
Well, right now I actually work with detective bureau, so it's chief of detective's office. I'm actually administrative right now, but I wasn't at first. So I like the fact that we have a little more freedom. We're treated more as adults. It's more politics, business, business attire. So it's more like that professional political feel when you walk into the office. Everyone is suited up in a sense of suit and tie, very professional. So I like the fact that we're treated like adults, because some jobs, some commands, when you're in the NYPD, you're not treated like an adult. Yes, so that's what I like about it.
When did you start working with the chief of detectives?
I would say back in November 2015.
Okay. Wow. Okay. So then on the complete opposite, what would you leave your job for?
Who? You know what? To be honest with you, I would leave my job for God. If he was to tell me, you gotta go, I'll be like, ooh, I'll be hurt. But you know what? Peace. Gotta go. Because I know there's something better on the other end, on the other side.
just at that spoken word.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
He says go, I'll go. And mm, probably, yeah, maybe family, but more so if he says it.
Maybe family. I like that. I
But
like
more
that.
so because I have so much invested. I only have 4 years left. I have 16 years on the job. So I only have 4 years left before I retire, and I have a full pension. The variable supplement every December. That's awesome. That's like an extra. Whoop, whoop. For anybody who's a cop out there, that's like extra money.
16 years on the force. Wow. I bet you've seen a lot.
I've seen some things, yes.
Yeah. All right. We'll get into all that. What is your favorite superhero?
Ooh, okay. Without a doubt, Wonder Woman. Actually, if you look at my Facebook page, you'll see Wonder Woman, and she's over there whooping it up with her tassel, with her thing, and she has like the cross. It was actually custom made. Kevin made it for me. He actually had an artist draw me with some curly looking hair or so, and they put like crosses on on her arms and on her headband.
See, that doesn't surprise me because I saw the other night you had a Wonder Woman cup mug that you're drinking out of. So
Yes.
that doesn't surprise me one bit at all. I think it fits you.
Yes.
I think it definitely fits you. And I definitely do remember seeing the picture on your Facebook because I was like, she doesn't look Amazonian at all. No. All right, Sophia. So 16 years on the force. Why don't you walk us through your background, like where you've been, where you're at now, kind of just the highs, the lows, everything that you've kind of gone through in these last 16 years.
Right. So when I first got on the job, um, I went into Queens. I don't know, Queens, New York. We called ourselves Queens Marines. We covered a certain area. The demographics were really awesome, but we mostly covered the nationality wise. It was Caribbean, it was Italian, Jewish. It was very diverse. So I was in the 106 precinct in Queens. Awesome time. I was there for several years. I did patrol. I was on the Burg Team. I was on crime team. They put me on a crime team, plainclothes unit, looking
What's
for.
the Burg Team?
So the burglary team. Sorry, I'm
Got
so
it.
sorry. Cop lingo.
We're learning stuff all the time.
So definitely, I was on a burglary team. There was a lot of burglaries where we were at because there was a lot of residential homes. So people were getting hit left and right, left and right. So we wind up. They made a burglary team where they had a team of maybe several people just going out there every day and just looking for suspicious activity. Groups of people, cars, suspicious vehicles, just encasing the area. We also had a crime team. Crime meaning where we're plainclothes unit, and they had us going out there basically just um, looking for the most serious crimes, like staying on top of robberies, like active robberies that would come over, active assaults, any type of active felony cases that came up. And besides that, um, from there, I wind up going into crime scene for a little bit, but it was temporary. But I got a little experience there, just seeing how they actually broke down a crime scene when a serious crime happened or a murder or something like that. So from crime scene, I wind up going to narcotics, and it was in Brooklyn, y'all. And in Brooklyn, it was definitely culture shock for me coming from Queens because it's totally different. It looked like when I came to Brooklyn, it was in the 75 precinct and basically in East New York, Brooklyn. And some of the people there looked like, I'm not going to lie to you, Night of the Living Dead. There was a lot of drugs. There was a lot of gangs. There was a lot of wars. There was a lot of shootings. There was a lot of drug prostitution, just a lot of that. And I literally was passing through and I was like, what is going on? This is crazy. And we would go out there every day. It's something called buy and bust. We'll do buy and bust, and literally just scooping up the people that was selling drugs on the street, with their subjects, which I'll talk about later. I think that really it should be just the drug dealers. But other than that, it was an awesome experience. It was an awesome experience. My team was great. We did a lot of search warrants, for narcotics. We had a lot of federal cases, dealing with drugs, the amount of money, that we dealt with and handled. We dealt with a lot of clubs, selling drugs and prostitution. So it was a lot of that in Brooklyn, a lot, you know. But other than that, um, from there, I wind up coming to Chief of Detective's office in November 2015. And it was awesome. I've been here several years, 6 years now, and it's really different. It's not like the streets. I'm not like always looking behind my back. I'm actually like a regular human being now. Yeah, so that's my career.
You're kind of wearing the suit now versus the
Yes,
uniform. So
yes.
a
So
little
I
bit
was
different.
yeah. So even in narcotics, you're plain clothes, just hoodie, hat, jeans, sneakers, so if we need to jump out and run, we're running, after something like that.
Wow. So working on a lot of teams, you've worked on several between the Burg
Yes.
and the drug teams. You've worked on a lot of teams. You've worked in a lot of close units. So how would you say, or how would you describe your leadership style? How you go about leading?
Ooh, okay. So when it came to my leadership style, especially in the NYPD, I'm not a supervisor, but there are times where I was put in a position where I had to give orders, where I had to give direction, I had to give just certain insights. So especially when I had search warrants. If it's my search warrant, I have to break down everything to the team, to the supervisors, to the captain, and basically have like a team huddle, like a TAC meeting early in the morning before we hit the door. And I have to say, hey guys, this is what's going on. This is what we need to do. This is what we have to do. This is where I need you guys to be at. So it was very authoritative. I think mostly because of the paramilitary that's going on and experience, but paramilitary, very authoritative. Sometimes when it comes outside of the job, coaching, I'm very different when it comes outside of the job. I could be a little authoritative sometimes. My husband might tell you, but and firm, but coaching more so like just trying to bring out the potential in people. And hey, have you considered this? What about this way? Trying to give people another perspective on how to look at things. That's
No, I get it. Coaching is my style. I love coaching because coaches sit back and they kind of see the offense and the defense at the exact same time, right?
right, right.
If we're talking basketball lingo, they're sitting on the side of the court and they're able to see all aspects and all sides, and you've got to be able to use that knowledge that they brought to it. So, yeah, I'm hearing as a leader, it's a lot of preparation.
Yes,
There's a
yes,
lot that you got to do. People that created the map have already been there. So
right.
in the similar sense, you're doing the exact same thing with your team. You've been there, you've seen it. And an interesting point that you brought up, Sophia, you said that you weren't always a supervisor leading in that role.
Right.
So what was that like? How did your teammates take that?
Well, I mean, they took a while because when we had like an understanding when it's your time to lead, and it's because you're the one who did all the work in this case. You're the one who did the surveillance. You're the one who identified the perpetrators. You know everything about this case for the most part, and they're pretty much leaning on you that you did your due diligence and that you're able to now relay every information that you collected from this case and relay it to them. So they had to rely on me, or I had to rely on someone else when it was their case or their search warrant, because it really came down to our safety.
Okay, so the safety of the team.
Right.
Okay, so was there times there when they were like, where they didn't want to hear from you, where they were very arm's length to you, of like, Was there any mix of that in the team?
I would say when it came to just regular, just going out and just doing regular B&B work, like buying bus work. Sometimes I'll make suggestions, and sometimes the guys be like, "Oh, Sophia, that's like, here she goes again," you
Oh,
know.
that was cute.
But then, I'm telling you, sometimes we see things, as women, hello, we see things sometimes that some people don't see.
Oh,
You
I know my wife is very observant of all the socks on the floor. She'll be like, "Did you pick up 16 green socks, two brown socks, and one single black sock?" And I'll be like, "How in the world did you even know that? You walked in, looked around, and walked out. Like, how did you know that? Like, you all's attention to detail is amazing."
Yes, women's attention to detail. We pay attention to everything. I'm
I
telling you.
hope Kevin is listening right now,
Yes, he
because
is.
if he isn't, he needs to open up his ears and understand this.
Yes, I'm telling you. And being in a male dominant job, sometimes it was a little struggle. Like butting heads a little bit, but it's okay. Eventually, when they was able to trust me, they allowed me to pretty much lead the way I wanted to, I needed to.
That's amazing. The way you needed to. I like how you
Yes.
say that, the way you needed to, because we're all different in our leadership styles, right? Like,
Yes.
it's how we can make them work when we can overlap them and make
Mhm.
them cohesive in that environment. We have different styles, you and I, but if we can come together for the better of the team, and as you put it, the safety of the team.
Right. Exactly.
Beautiful. All right, so let's kind of transition a little bit over to what comes to mind when we talk about spiritual resiliency for you.
Okay. When it comes to spiritual resiliency, is basically how we sustain ourselves through difficult times, um, just based off our sense of self, our purpose, our beliefs, what we believe in, our principles, our moral standards, our religious views. How do we sustain ourselves during the times of what they might say trials and tribulations? How do we bounce back? How do we move forward now? Because sometimes we have to go through things in order to get a deeper revelation of what's actually happening, and basically just learn from it. You learn from it, and you keep moving forward, and you don't do it again if it was a mistake, But how do we go and just bounce back from difficult times? And I think that's really what it is to me, how I see it.
Okay, we're going to look at this from three different perspectives. So I
Okay.
want you to kind of walk us through how you build spiritual resiliency within yourself,
Mhm.
your family, and your team at work. So starting with yourself.
Okay. So within myself, really, I know, I look at it like this. Before Christ, I thought I knew what I was doing, but it was an epic fail in a sense. I made a lot of mistakes. I made a lot of bad decisions, and I had to learn from them. I had to learn the hard way, and I had to be humbled. So, when I came to Christ and He basically called me to surrender, I didn't know what that looked like because I had a sense of control, where where I just always wanted to control things. If I didn't do it, it wasn't done right. So I had to fully surrender to Him, to God, to Christ, and honestly, He made it difficult for me in in a sense, but in order for me to control, I mean to submit. So I had to lean on Him. I had to be in prayer. I had to listen and start. When I started to hear God, some people don't believe in that, but when you start to hear God, it is a beautiful, beautiful thing. And He started to give me instructions. He started to tell me what to do. And as a woman who is in an authoritative type of job, a paramilitary job, it's kind of hard to submit. I mean, well, not really, because I have to submit to authority, but to something that you can't see, and it was kind of hard for me, but I got it. I finally got it. And when I started to get it, I started to see progress in my life. I started to see things turn around. So I believe it was really in prayer, just going to Him and really just submitting to God.
Okay. Well, what about your family? How do you build it in your kids, in your husband, your relationship with him? How do you build the spiritual resiliency there as you get ready to go out for the day?
Right. So normally when it comes to the kids, like, kids, they're going to be kids. So there's a lot of times where kids are going to make mistakes, even husbands, where they're going to make mistakes. And sometimes I have to have that understanding that we're not perfect, we're human. So just kind of allowing grace to take place and allowing people to make their mistakes, but also try to help them see, hey, I believe there was another way, and let me show you how, and just trying to give a little perspective or insight. Sometimes it's not wanted, but but still, I still, hey, what about this way? That it comes down to the coaching leadership style that I have. What about this way? Have you considered this? What about this? So always just kind of trying to build them back up and trying to see things differently or a broader perspective of how to do things better next time, you know?
Yeah, you mentioned when you were going over your career about the B&Bs,
Yeah.
right? And you said I'll get into that later as far as people making mistakes and that you think it should be more on the dealer than on the buyer.
Right.
It almost sounds like you're kind of going into that here at this moment when you're saying that a mistake for one person on the one side, one person's making a decision to make a career of versus the other side. Could you walk that out a little bit for us?
Yeah, when it comes to the dealer and the buyer, of
Yes.
course. So, honestly, when someone is doing a drug or when someone is addicted to the drug, it's really they're in bondage. They're in bondage. They don't know how to get out. They actually need help. And that's how I see it. They actually need help. They have an addiction at this point. Sometimes when you do a drug and you get so high or whatever the case may be, and they're like, oh my gosh, what was that? They the first time experiencing that might draw them to want to do it again, and then eventually it becomes an addiction. So it's something with the mind that you almost need to almost like help someone snap out of it and help them get out of that. First they have to detox and then they have to go through like counseling. So it's really they're in bondage. They need help. That's how I see it. And when it comes to someone that's making a career out of it, someone that's actually dealing the drugs, they know what they're doing. They're destroying their communities. They're destroying the people. They're destroying our neighborhoods with drugs because where there's drugs, there's prostitution. And where there's prostitution, there's guns and the gang violence and all that other stuff. So they know what they're doing, and they don't care. There's no value to life,
Mm.
to human life. They don't have no consideration to human life.
So I
So
can I
that's
can definitely see where that is a hard thing for you to have to bust on both sides because one's a life choice versus one is a bondage issue.
yeah, it was a life choice, but sometimes it does become when it comes to the user, it becomes bondage. An addiction is
Mhm.
different.
So does that when it comes to your team and building spiritual resiliency within the team unit that you have, does that thought that you have ever conflict with your team members?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Because that's what I said. When I started to learn, understand who God was, and when I started to have compassion for people, it was not clicking in that unit.
Mm-hmm.
They used to actually say, "Oh, here she go again, Mother Teresa, trying to talk to the perps in the cells." But really, guess what? When I started speaking to them, and they started to just unwind and just talk to me and tell me about their history and what they've been through. A lot of them have been abused in many different ways growing up. They have a lot of issues with family. They had a lot of traumas in their life, so which led them to even wanting to try this drug, which made them addicted.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, and eventually after just bringing them even to central booking, and when I would transport the prisoners, at the end of the day, they would be thanking me. They would be thanking me. They would be like, at the time my last name was Jackson. Jackson, I've never met a cop like you, an officer like you. I just want to say thank you. Like I know I'm here, and I don't want to be here, but this wasn't a bad thing. Like talking to you, you know. Yeah.
I think at that moment you were spiritually resilient for them because too often we look at each of the different pillars of resiliency: social, physical, mental, and the social side. A lot of them overlap, right? Like a lot of them overlap in those. And when we talk about spiritual resiliency, we talk about a force greater than ourselves, like believing in a force greater than ourselves to help us through situations. And that Mother Teresa, that Mother Teresa moment, yes, but that's what they needed in that moment, right?
Right.
And that's important for someone to be able to hold on to gravitate towards.
Right. And let me tell you something regarding that. I've had a couple times an experience where some of them will actually go to the hospital, right? I'll be with them all day because, there has to be someone that has to sit them because I was new in the unit, or maybe, just someone low on the totem pole as far as like how much time you had on the job. We had to
rank structure.
Yeah. Right. So with that said, I would literally just minister without even knowing what I was doing, and just talk to them and just, help them cope and help them understand why, how they got there, just different things. And some people, I actually saw a couple people when I came back to the hospital with another prisoner. One guy ran up to me and he looked totally different. When I say he looked totally different, he had like a suit, like almost like a button up suit, a shirt with his slacks on, and he ran up to me. He says, "Jackson, Jackson." I'm like, "Oh my gosh, oh hey, what's up?" He goes, "Oh my gosh, I got a job. I did what you said. Look at me now. Look, I'm doing so much better. I just want to say thank you." And he gave me a hug. He gave me such a huge hug, and mind you, we arrested him. So I'm like, "Oh my gosh, oh yes, I'm so happy to see you." And I'm so grateful. I'm thankful that you're there. And he's like, "I'm so thankful. Thank you so much. You really, really helped me. Thank you." And when I left, I just felt so full. Like, God, this is what it's about. This is what it's about.
And when we let one pillar of those four start to crumble a little bit, eventually the rest of them will start going if we don't fix that moment. And sometimes the fix is the pain that we have to go through, right?
Yes.
A lot of that is just the pain that's been built up, and that we have to go in and we have to take time to take a knee, fix, and allow the rest of it to kind of come together.
Yes.
So that's awesome to hear. All right. So give us a moment, a time when you had to rely on spiritual resiliency, when you had to lean on that spiritual pillar, right, in the job.
Woo. In the job. Okay. So I have one in the job and outside. But okay. In the job. Okay. So I remember one time, I had did a search warrant and I hit two doors at once. Right. And I had a team go upstairs and I had a team go downstairs. And we got positive, all that stuff, right? And we wound up, making a lot of arrests. And it was my first two search warrants in narcotics. And it was awesome. Everybody was like, yeah, it was great. Awesome. Everything was great. But then these people wind up suing me and my team, right? Yeah. And they when I say they made so many false allegations against me, I mean, it was so bad. I was going to court for 2 years for them. Yes, because of what they allegedly said and how they made false allegations. And now I was under investigation. And I was just like, what in the world is going on? And I just had to really just stay calm through it all. I had to understand, like, you know what, people are gonna make allegations, but I felt like the job was really entertaining it. And at that point, I just had to rely on, at the time, God, but I really didn't have a real relationship with him at that time. But I did rely on God. And I was praying, like, what is this? God help me, you know? So the people wind up getting a massive amount of money from their lawsuit. But then the woman who won, she wound up dying. She wound up dying like maybe 6 months afterwards. Young girl too.
Wow.
Yeah, and I was just like, huh, like that's crazy. When all this money, then when I'm dying.
Just in that.
Yeah.
Wow. I just can't even like imagine just, going through all of that, going through all the trouble and the pain to get ahead.
Yeah. But when I tell you they were stalking me, they were stalking me. They were stalking my Facebook page. They found my Facebook page. They were making threats, everything. They started telling other officers that they saw that they bumped into in narcotics, started telling them about me. Yeah, they were really stalking me. They were telling me, they said, "Oh, I know about you. I know who you're married to. I know this. I know that. I know your children," like that, and saying their names. I'm like, "Yo, this is crazy."
So what did you do to overcome? How did you push through that?
Well, really, just I prayed. I hoped. I just said, you know what? I'm gonna just continue to stay in a positive mindset. I'm not gonna let this affect me. I'm going to say positive. I know I didn't do anything wrong. I have all the evidence. I mean, how can they entertain this when we have evidence? If they trying to say that we, planted or whatever, this is how am I going to have this on hand? It's my first two search warrants, you know. And I said, you know what? I'll leave it up to you, God. And at that point, I just said, you know what? I'm going to not focus on that and just keep doing what I'm doing. And that's when I just became more like crossing my T's and dotting my I's with future cases. Yeah.
Oh, it definitely taught you to.
Oh, it taught me. I was like, okay, I'm crossing
details.
my T's. I'm details. I took pictures of everything. I was like this. I was like a photographer at my search warrant was like
all over the place.
Like, yep, I'm taking a picture of my bird with the drugs, with everything here. Yes. So y'all know. Don't play.
But what I found interesting in that story is that you said that you weren't really, you weren't necessarily, you didn't have the relationship with God at that point, but you were praying to God. You were seeking out after something bigger than yourself in that moment. And it drew you closer eventually, and even when you were talking about with the quote, the arrested perps, right? That there was still a growth of relationship in that moment, which is awesome because healing comes from relationship, right?
Yeah.
Now you said that you had one story that was not related to work about a moment when you had to rely on spiritual resilience. So go ahead.
So at this point in time, I knew God. I just started hearing him. He started coming with his miracle signs and wonders in my life. I started seeing miracles, like miracles. I'm praying for certain things, and it would just happen. Almost like he was showing his hand to me, like, I'm real. I'm here. You don't believe in me? Who made you then? Who made this world? Who made everything here? You think something just came with a big bang? No, honey. There's a creator behind you. I'm here. Right? And I'm like, okay, well, God, give me a sign. All right. So what happened was this. My son, I actually had a dream that my son, my 3-year-old son at the time, in a dream, it was like a demon, right? Evil spirit, however you want to say it. And it literally tried to kill him in my dream. And it grabbed him up. It took him into a dark room and it started yanking him around the room in my dream. And I ran after him. I wasn't even trying. I wasn't even scared of this thing at the time in my dream. All I wanted to do was get my son back. And I ran into this room and I tried to grab him and I was like, I'm coming for you. So when I woke up in like in a panic and I heard pray for your son. And at this time, I was still a new believer, even though I was starting to hear God. And I started to pray. He said, pray for your son because someone is basically the enemy's trying to kill him. I said, okay. So I started praying, but it was kind of like these weak prayers. I didn't know how to pray then, right? So fast forward a week later, I'm looking at my son. We're playing in my house. And next thing you know, little 3-year-old boy, his chest just started caving in as he's breathing. And I'm looking at him like, why is his chest looking like that? And it looked like he was having difficulty breathing. And he didn't have any signs of anything, any signs of any cold or nothing. And his chest just caving in. It looked like his chest was caving into his back. That's how deep his chest went in. Wow. And I was like, oh my gosh. I called his dad and I showed him on FaceTime. He said, take him to the hospital now. I said, okay. Got him dressed. I got dressed and I drove him to the hospital. I brought him to the hospital and the doctors and nurses are looking at him. They're taking, they're doing all these tests on him. And they looked at me and they said, we're happy you brought him in. Because if you didn't, he wouldn't have made it throughout the night. And I said, oh my God, Lord, what's going on? So then now at this time, he's having so much difficulty breathing. They had to put a tube on his nose, right? For him to breathe on his mouth. He's trying to breathe through it and it's not working. They're looking at me like they're looking at each other. I could see them. I could see a little panic in them. And I was like, oh Lord, God, what's going on? So then I call my brothers and my sisters from church and I said, y'all need to pray now. Y'all need to pray now. Like something is going on. I don't know what this is, but y'all need to pray now. And I knew what it was. It was a warning a week before this happened, right? So I knew what it was. So at this time, I'm basically like, oh my gosh, what do we do? The doctors come to me. They said, hey, we're going to have to put him on the tubes. This is his only chance of surviving. And this happened in February 2020, right before I got the word out that I was going to get married. So they said, listen, we're going to have to give him the tube, put the tubes on him. What do you think? What do you think, Mom? I'm telling you, this is what you should do. And I just felt so like defeated. And I was like, go ahead, just do it. Whatever you think is it's necessary. So they wound up putting him on the tubes. And it looked so crazy seeing my 3-year-old son on the breathing machine, completely out, just on the breathing machine.
It almost makes you feel helpless.
Right.
Like your baby.
Right. And when they started doing like sonograms on him, they realized his whole left lung was filled with mucus. His whole left lung filled with mucus. And for 2 days, they monitored him. And they was like, oh my gosh, we need to do something. So they kicked me out the morning of going into the third day. They kicked me out the room. And they was like, you're going to have to get out. We're going to do emergency surgery. We're going to have to put a tube in his back to drain out this fluid out of his lung. And I was like, the devil is a liar. They put me in the next room. Honey, when I tell you that I started to going to war in prayer, I went to war. I've never prayed before. It was like a war cry. It was like a prayer of a mama. I was like, God, what is too big for you? You done raised Lazarus from the dead. You done opened the eyes of the blind. You healed the sick. You did all of this stuff. What is too big for you? Is this too big for you? Get on your knees and pray. And a part of me was like, what? Get on my knees. But a part of me was like, you better do it. Right? So I said, okay, let me humble myself. Because if this is God telling me to get on my knees, I'm going to get on my knees. I got on my knees and I went to war. 15 minutes later, do you know what happened? Those doctors came right in the room, suited up still, looking baffled. They looked so confused. And I looked at them like, what's going on? What's going on? They said, we don't know what happened, but we know we saw it. We just saw it before you had you go out the room. But when we moved him and we went to go do the sonogram again to see where the fluid was at, it was not there. We was like, maybe it must have moved. We're trying to think of different options of what could have happened. And I looked at them and I said, praise God. And I remember this one lady, one doctor, I think she was like Arabic or something. And she looked at me and she just rolled her eyes like, and I looked at her again and I said, praise God. And next thing you know, they took me back in the room and his vital signs just started going back up to normal. The next day, they was monitoring him. They didn't know what to do. They was like, okay, are we gonna have these tubes in him still? We need to monitor him. They did an X-ray. No fluid. No fluid, y'all. There was no fluid in his left lung. They just kept doing so much stuff, and they was like, what are we gonna do? So they was like, you know what? Let's just take out the tubes. Let's see how he acts now. So they pulled the tubes out, and they was like, oh, you got to be very gentle with him. We're gonna have him walk a little bit around the, sometimes it's gonna take them a few days to walk. I said, the blood of Jesus. That's what I said. I ain't gonna lie. I started touching his legs. I said, strength now in the name of Jesus. Come now. Strength come to these legs. Be healed now in Jesus' name. My son started running. Started to run. The doctors was looking so confused. They was like, what church do you go to? Where you from? Where you from? Yep, healed miraculously like that. And then God literally had me go. One night he woke me up. It was like an electric shock. Like, I was like, what's going on? He was like, go pray over every room right now. I was like, what? They're going to stop me. Go pray over every room right now. Touch the door. Pray over every room. They're not going to stop you. I literally walked through that hallway in the middle of the morning. No one stopped me. It was like I was invisible. I went over every room, every child room. I was in intensive care ICU for children. When I say everybody who was a one meaning their worst condition, the next day they were being released. I swear to you.
See, and that's what it looks like for you. That's what it looks like for different types of people throughout life, right? You have spiritual resiliency at work. You have a very stressful job.
Yes.
let's just put it, you have a very stressful job. And the way that you come home, when I come home to my house, I like to kick back. I like to just enjoy to just be home with my wife, with Lena and Stanley. And you don't want to come home to stress. And when that stress enters into your home, you have to find ways to eliminate it or to at least lessen it as much as humanly possible, because that's your comfort. That's your place. This is where we feel most loved, where we feel, or at least that's where it's supposed to be. Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah.
And I think it's beautiful to hear how you pushed through, how you overcame so much from, what you've seen on the job. I know that you didn't go into half of the stuff that you could have with the job, because I know there's a lot more to you than what you let on.
Yes.
Mainly just because I know you.
Right.
But there's not a day that I haven't seen that you have a smile. You don't have a smile on your face. It's there. It's always there. Right. Like you find ways to overlap those pillars and to make them really structured well. You are structured very, very well, Sophia. And I'm pleased to call you a friend. After meeting you with Mr. Paula Liu in the classes success draft to moving over to here, to creating that relationship, we've seen so much growth in you, in Kev. So it's amazing to see that. So what books right now are you reading? This is what we're going to end on. What books are you reading right now?
Okay, so I actually just finished Culture of Honor by Danny Silk. I was also in the middle. I'm kind of back and forth with it, but Prayers That Routes Out Demons. Yes, by John Eckert. And I was reading another book that I haven't finished yet. It's called Pigs in the Parlor by Frank Hammond. Hammond. Pigs in the Parlor by Frank Hammond.
That's just kind of funny, though, if you think about ham. Pig,
Yes, and then I'm also reading. God had me in the Old Testament. He brought me back to the Old Testament. He have me reading First Kings right now.
Wow. Okay, so you're reading and finishing books like that. I sit here and I say I don't have time for that, but good golly, people with some pretty high paced jobs are over here out reading me like crazy. You know what?
Oh, I have to go back to the middle ones, but right now I'm currently reading like for sure First Kings.
Okay.
The Old Testament. Mm-hmm.
Well, Sophia, it has truly been a blessing. Sophia White, everyone, New York Police Department detective, 16-year veteran of the New York Police Department, getting ready to retire in 4 years, getting ready to have a child again. Oh my goodness, life is busy.
Yes.
We are absolutely blessed to have you here, Sophia.
Thank you.
This podcast is starting to really evolve into what I think is going to be great, to be able to help people look at spiritual resilience, to be able to find what it looks like in their own lives, whether it's going out on a run, or seeing it in the Bible, or seeing it in whatever aspect they see it, that they need to refine it well within them. I would love to thank the second half of this team, which is my producer, Jeff Frazier, with 369studiodesigns.com. Jeff Frazier, prior military, one of my great friends, served with him, is doing a great job with this podcast, with the producing. He actually he composed and produced the intro and outro music that you hear on all of our shows. So a personal thanks from me to him. So thank you, everyone. We will see you next week. Look forward to helping as we navigate through spiritual resiliency with the Wartime Leadership Podcast. Be blessed.